Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and one huge overlooked detail from the recent Superman trailer might have clued us into James Gunn's plan for Batman, Gotham City, and Gunn's Gods and Monsters narrative in the DC universe. And it all comes down to the geography and the history of the DCU, things that James Gunn this week gave us some major confirmations about. If those weren't your best subjects in school, don't worry, that's what I'm here for. I didn't have friends. In this video, I'm gonna look deeper at this Superman footage and connect the dots with interviews and lingering clues from Creature Commandos to explain what is currently going on with Batman and Gotham in the DCU. Where's Batman? When are we gonna get him? And why is it so thematically important that Robert Pattinson's Batman be in a separate Elseworlds? Hey, if you want to support New Rockstars, we have some awesome shirt designs available at nerdriot.shop, like our new Dino Danger hoodie. All right, this week saw the release of a final tickets on sale trailer for James Gunn's Superman, as well as several shorter TV promos and social media spots, which we covered in a few videos, but it's these major world-building details that James Gunn dropped in interviews that put it all in a new light. James Gunn said in a video interview with Fandango that Superman has been active as a superhero in Metropolis for 3 years.
Now we're just picking up on the story of one particular superhero 3 years after he comes on the scene, who happens to be the most powerful metahuman of all time.
And James Gunn said in an interview with Entertainment Weekly that metahumans have been known to the public in the DCU for 300 years. 300 years! That's how old this superhero-populated cinematic universe is. And it's a specific number. Jessica Clemons actually broke down in a general overview video the whole DC slate and the characters we know are in it. But just to recap here, the metahuman characters and superheroes and supervillains that we know exist in the DCU, from Superman, next year's Supergirl, Lanterns, Creature Commandos, and any other confirmations from the creatives behind this. This universe has Superman Kal-El, Krypto, Lex Luthor, Green Lantern Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific Michael Holt, Hawkgirl Kendra Saunders, Metamorpho Rex Mason, Baby Joey, The Engineer Angela Spica, Maxwell Lord, Ultraman, Supergirl Kara Zor-El, Lobo, Peacemaker, Vigilante, Judo Master, Blue Beetle, Amanda Waller, John Economos, the members of Task Force M, including the Bride, Dr. Phosphorus, Dr. Nina Mazursky, Weasel, a rebuilt form of G.I. Robot, and then new members Nosferatu, Kalis, and King Shark. This universe has a Themysciran sorceress Cersei, as well as Eric Frankenstein. There is a Batman Bruce Wayne, as well as a Damian Wayne Robin, a Booster Gold, a Starfire from Teen Titans, a Gorilla Grodd, a Hal Jordan Green Lantern, a John Stewart Green Lantern, a Wonder Woman Diana, and a Clayface. And that's just at the start. James Gunn said in that Entertainment Weekly interview response that since metahumans have existed for 300 years, when people pass King Shark on the street, they don't freak out. Gunn also teased the existence of a dinosaur island, and there is a dinosaur island in DC continuity, and I think it might have been James Gunn thinking out loud when it comes to his plans for Creature Commando Season 2, because yes, there is a dinosaur island, and that island does tie in with Task Force M. But a detail I pointed out in my Superman trailer breakdown is that Metropolis is firmly set within the state of Delaware. You can see the Delaware state flag hanging in the Daily Planet newsroom. Metropolis is commonly located in the state of Delaware in the comics, right across the bay from the southern part of New Jersey, where Gotham City and Bloodhaven are located. That seems to be the continuity James Gunn is sticking with in the DCU. 2 years ago, James Gunn indicated to Michael Rosenbaum on the Inside of You podcast that this specificity with the geography is one thing he loves about DC over his past work with Marvel.
One of the things I love about DC and excites me about DC is that in a way it's another alternate history. You know, it is Gotham City and Metropolis and Star City and Bloodhaven and you know, all these different places in this other reality, and it makes it a little bit like Westeros in some ways. I love that about it. I love that we get to create true world building in DC. It isn't just we're throwing some superheroes on Earth.
Yeah.
You know.
I like that.
So I think that right now, that's one of the key differences.
And the more you read into it, it becomes clear that Gunn is not doing the typical franchise thing of like blurring the lines and not answering questions when it comes to just basic maps and world building. Like, we are going to know the spatial distance between Metropolis and Gotham, as well as how those cities geographically relate to real world cities that are also along the eastern seaboard of the United States, like New York and Washington, D.C. We're also going to know who the president is, because in the Superman trailer in May, Lois Lane reference members of the administration like the Secretary of Defense and reference the president, and in the Entertainment Weekly article, we learned the US president is going to be weighing in on Superman's actions in Baravia. But how does this connect to Gotham? Well, James Gunn began to show us what the DCU Gotham will look like in the animated form of Creature Commandos. Season 1, Episode 6, that was a Dr. Phosphorus backstory. Dr. Phosphorus was previously Alex Sartorius. He got mixed up with organized crime and was forced into a radioactive chamber. Just from that alone, this was a heightened version of Gotham with a green, gloomy light cast over it. And if you can imagine a live action version of that, doesn't that seem pretty different from pretty much every other Gotham that we've seen in live action in the past? The DCU Batman does appear in that episode, and we later learn that Dr. Phosphorus' accident was 15 years before the main events of this series.
You know what it's like not being touched for 15 years?
Yeah.
And James Gunn confirmed that this was the DCU official Batman.
Batman is a part of this universe. He's an important part of this universe, and he has an impact on it. This is the DCU Batman.
But in that same interview with Rotten Tomatoes TV, James Gunn said that the exact look of Batman was still a work in progress, and that he kept telling the animators to make him more of a silhouette, which is what led to this Frank Miller The Dark Knight Rises lightning bolt effect.
More silhouette, more silhouette, more silhouette.
But if this Batman sighting occurred up to 15 years in the past, or at least like 10 years, and if we now know that Superman has been active for only 3 years, it tells us that the DCU Batman has been around in this world doing his thing for a lot longer than Superman has. In fact, the DCU Batman is almost certainly older than the DCU Superman. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. A good therapist helps you see that you're not behind in life, you're simply on your own unique timeline. They can help you recognize that your identity isn't fixed by some arbitrary deadline, but constantly evolving as you grow. This perspective shift alone can be so beneficial. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easy. Just head to betterhelp.com/newrockstars, fill out a questionnaire, and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple days. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Click the link in the description, scan the QR code, or go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars and get 10% off your first month of therapy. James Gunn has also confirmed other American cities in the DCU through Creature Commandos, from Nina's father reading the Star City Star, meaning they come from Star City, home of Green Arrow over on the West Coast, and a mention of Star City and Bloodhaven.
Star City Metropolitan has brought in animal control experts from Metropolis and Bloodhaven to help track down and capture the beast.
But in terms of the 300-year history of the DCU, we learned that the sorceress Circe was exiled from Themyscira for predicting a tsunami would hit the island country, a detail that could tie into the Wonder Woman Paradise Lost series, a show that could take place 300 years in the past. We also saw in Creature Commandos the origin of the Bride and Erik Frankenstein, which started around the 1830s, but it sounds like James Gunn has a specific historical event in mind, circa 1725, when the people of Earth made their first discovery of metahumans. And I feel like we're going to get that answer in either Lantern or Paradise Lost. But I do like that James Gunn seems to know what that history is, because James Gunn, remember, is the past Marvel director who supplied the MCU with its whole cosmic backstory. The origin of the Infinity Stones was first explained by the Collector in James Gunn's 2014 Guardians of the Galaxy, which James Gunn later joked with Chris Pratt while being interviewed by Brandon Davis that Gunn came up with this whole backstory in just an hour and a half.
In the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, the Collector explains the Infinity Stones in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the first time. Can you name all 6 Infinity Stones?
I wrote that scene in about an hour and a half. Just like came up with what the Infinity Stones were. Everything's based on that. They're like, you know, what do they want to put in the power stones? I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's the Collector had power stones, and I just made up this bullshit. That's what it is. Anyway,
And that's how the Marvel Cinematic Universe came together.
So James Gunn is eager to build a multi-story narrative and to be fully in charge of its execution now across various titles, being able to build it at his own pace. He told Michael Rosenbaum in that same podcast why he was attracted to take over DC Studios after initially telling David Zaslav and Toby Emmerich no to the job. It was after Gunn's longtime manager and producing partner Peter Safran pitched doing the job together.
That became suddenly an opportunity to do something that had never been done before, to create the biggest story ever told across, film, television, gaming, and more. And I knew that there had been spectacular missteps in the past with all sorts of different choices.
Now, the missteps James Gunn referred to there, I think, are just confusion and inconsistency in the world building. And this is something we've seen in every major interconnected franchise, from Marvel to Star Wars and yes, DC. A kind of disagreement from one title to the next as to what parts of the history are and are not canon, where the border of this universe is, and what the outer world of these stories really looks like. And just a failure to deliver deliver on the promise of when one thing happens in a story, it really does have the weight and affects the world of another story. And I think this week's marketing for all these DC titles has more or less told us what that interconnective thread will be. James Gunn already told us a few years ago, gods and monsters. And the Superman trailer shows us how that's going to be executed through what we call the QUC, the Quantum Unfolding Chamber, a pocket reality that Peacemaker said, quote, leads to a dimensional nodule outside of normal space. And it's in this pocket universe that I believe Lex Luthor has collected hundreds of metahumans and what we might call monsters. We see various shots of whatever this is in the trailers, both an orderly grid containing metahumans and beings like Superman and Metamorpho, his lover Sapphire Stag, their son Baby Joey, patrolled by creepy weirdos like Mr. Handsome, and also presumably containing things like the kaiju that we know from kids' books start as babies and then rapidly grow. I think whatever this pocket universe looks like when it spills open, Gunn has said this QUC will play a big role in Superman and in Peacemaker Season 2, suggesting it'll be a lingering issue beyond the runtime of the Superman film. And here's the detail that I've been teasing. The fact that this trench seems to extend into the water that borders Metropolis, a bay that we know connects to Gotham City, I think is really the missing link from this trailer that tells us how this will all lead to Batman. Some of these gods and monsters in the damaged QUC will spread into Gotham City and suddenly become Batman's problem. Imagine the final act of the movie The Cabin in the Woods, but with the monsters spilling out across the world without the world ending, and all corners of the DC Earth now have to deal with it. James Gunn told Michael Rosenbaum that he wants his DCU to be more fantastical than what past superhero universes have primed us to expect, and I think this is what he's getting at.
There is a bit more of a fantasy element to DCU because they're these larger than life superheroes.
So when we get to Batman in Gotham City, his first villains are less likely to be the more groundable ones that we've seen plenty of times in various incarnations, who probably make better sense and are arguably better explored in crime epic tones, like what Christopher Nolan explored in his trilogy, or what Matt Reeves is exploring in his Elseworld, the likes of Joker, Catwoman, the Falcones and Maronis, Riddler, the Court of Owls, Penguin, maybe Hush, all great characters who can fit in with a criminal underworld and be combated that way, and any of whom could be explored in future seasons of The Penguin or in Matt Reeves' The Batman Part 2. And instead, the DCU Gotham will explore some of the more heightened metahuman Batman villains, at least at first, the likes of Clayface, Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, Hugo Strange, a really gnarly version of Two-Face, Ra's al Ghul, and then, maybe one day in the distant future, a reconceived Joker that would fit better with the DCU of that time. But can we take some time with this, please, like Phase 3 DCU? While the DCU Metropolis and the DCU Gotham should have very different tones, the monster breakout could be what unites them. And the variety will come from the fact that every home has different and unique nightmares that most effectively plague its waking life. And Batman, as an older hero in the DCU than Superman is likely to have even more of those monstrous nightmares waiting to find him again. Now, the current status of the DCU Batman movie is that it will be separate from the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson, The Batman Part 2, which still has a release date of October 2027, and James Gunn just told Entertainment Weekly that he expects to see a script draft of that movie soon, and that it remains an important part of what they are doing. And I think the reason it's so important is to provide that contrast to allow the DCU Gotham to be more fantastical. The DCU Batman film remains on course to be a Batman Brave and the Bold story based on the Grant Morrison run, featuring Batman and his son, Damian Wayne Robin, who is produced from the DNA of Batman and Talia al Ghul. In February, James Gunn confirmed that they have a screenwriter for this, but he has yet to name that screenwriter, and confirmed that Andy Muschietti is still attached to direct. At least he's gonna have the first look at the script when it's done. But we have learned that Superman will have a post-credit scene, and that a very big cameo will appear at the end of Peacemaker Season 2. And I just have a feeling that one or both of these titles will show us the live-action Gotham, and at least tease the DCU Batman and how the Gods and Monsters crisis has impacted that part of the world. Comment down below with your thoughts on all this, and a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Paulo Bianca, who supports us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all of the channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.